you can go ahead and start your presentation.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Cordell McGarry. I work with the Certification Division of the Department of Procurement Services, and our division is responsible for the certification of minority and women-owned businesses. We offer a variety of different programs to achieve that purpose. We're going to talk about two of the programs today, the Minority-Owned Business Enterprise and the Women-Owned Business Enterprise, or MBE, WBE, and a process that's known as the Professional Declaration of Eligibility, which is an innovative way of allowing professionals, attorneys and CPAs to step into the role of the certification officer in the review, verification of information that's needed to attest that an applicant is eligible for certification as either a minority or woman-owned business. The programs that we look at for MBE and WBE eligibility are located on our website, and specifically they are regulations that are governing the certification of minority and women-owned business enterprises for non-construction contracts. We have roughly, again, 5 different certification programs. The regulations that we're referring to covers a variety of other programs in addition to the minority and women-owned business enterprise programs. To find that actual regulation, you can go to our website. I think the link is showing below, and that will take you right there. The guidelines are pretty much what the professional will be using in determining the eligibility of certification. So we encourage you to acquaint yourself with the regulations because these will be the roadmap to certification for your clients. For purposes of eligibility for this particular aspect, the Professional Declaration of Eligibility process, it is limited to firms that are seeking certification as a minority business enterprise or women business enterprise. Businesses that are not involved in the construction trades or involved as a retailer, supplier, or distributor would be eligible for consideration under this process. Firms that are seeking certification should not have been denied for certification under our programs within the last 3 years, nor should they have been previously certified and withdrawn their certifications within that same time frame. And as well, we have a size standard, which we look at in terms of eligibility for the program. We will exclude firms that have been certified with the city and have graduated out of the program by virtue of their size being larger than the program requirements, which again is found in the regulations. We look at professionals to assist us in the program. We ask that the requirements will consist of individuals being either an attorney or a CPA license. The professional should not have been convicted or found liable of fraud and or making false statements in the course of business. We also will request that there be no ownership interest, no employee interest, or familial relationship with the client that is seeking to be certified as a minority or woman-owned business enterprise. Again, so the professional that's involved in this program takes on the role of the certification officer. And in that regard, that responsibility would include the professional doing a full review of the application for certification and all supporting documentation by the applicant vendor. The professional that's involved in the process should not be involved in preparing the documentation or the application for the vendor. Again, you're the certification officer. Your role is to review the documentation that's been provided to determine eligibility. That professional will also be involved in conducting an on-site business interview with the owner. Normally that's done first face-to-face. We recognize that during this time of COVID-19, that might be a bit of a problem. We have been conducting or allowing Zoom interviews to be done in place of the face-to-face visit. The professional, after they've reviewed the documentation and conducted the on-site visit interview, will prepare a summary report summarizing the documentation and information that's been provided to her. The summary report should be somewhat detailed to basically tell the story as to your observations and review of the information and leads towards making a recommendation of certification or denial. That document, at the end, that documentation is also attested by the professional as being conducted and true and accurate with the guidelines for this particular process. The documentation, submission, summary, and all the information together has been submitted to the city. It's going to be checked for completeness and then formally received. Once we receive it, the role that we will play is basically to do a basic review of the application and information, relying primarily on the summary and the information provided by the professional. Upon completion of that review, we will either grant certification, send a preliminary notice of denial, which is appealable, or notify the applicant that additional information would be needed. In the event that the application has been incomplete or lacks sufficient information to concur with the recommendation of the professional, the application will be subject to review under the standard certification process, where city personnel will be involved now in making that determination of eligibility. Once a business has been certified with the city, be it through the standard process or through the professional declaration process, that business is certified for a period of 5 years. During that 5-year period, firms will be submitting on an annual basis a no change affidavit information on a regular basis to attest that there's been no changes in circumstances that would lend a business to be rendered ineligible for certification or continued certification. Once the decision for certification has been made by the Professional Declaration of Eligibility process, on occasion, the file will be subject to a full scope audit by staff to ensure that the information has been provided in the recommendation of the regulations. Do's and don'ts of the city would basically pertain to the fact that the city does not certify or endorse CPAs or attorneys to prepare applications for vendors seeking certification with the city of Chicago. That's to say that we don't maintain a list of approved attorneys or CPAs recommend to applicants. This is solely a process that's conducted between the potential applicant assistance from. So again, just kind of going over the documentation process. The applicant will prepare an application. It's done electronically online at www.chicago.mwdbe.com. There's also a professional declaration of eligibility affidavit that's submitted with that application, and all that information is available at the website itself. Documentation that should be provided with the application, of course, would be contact information about the business itself, the primary owners of the business, basic information like that, the type of certification that the applicant is seeking, MBE and or WBE or both. Information on the application will cover information regarding ownership, employees, and the facility of operation for the business. We do request financial information from the business in the event that the business has been an ongoing concern for several years. That would include personal and corporate tax returns, generally for a 3-year period. In the event that the business is relatively new and has not been around for the 3-year period, we would just want to have at least some explanation that would lend itself to explain why that information is not available. Certain licenses are required for the applicant and its business. We do ask that information be provided, such that in the event that the applicant may be, let's say, licensing as an engineer would be required. In the event
Cordell,
yeah.
I don't know if you have a fan on or something, but sometimes you go in and out. Can you just repeat that last part you just said?
Sure, no problem. Speaking with regard to financial information, which would include, again, personal and corporate tax returns, normally for a 3-year period, and also licenses that may be required for the business to operate. Those licenses could be professional licenses, such as an engineering license, or in the event that the business operates, let's say, for example, office or a storefront, there may be a City of Chicago business license that might be required. That information could be also determined by contacting the city's Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection for specific information on licensing in that regard. Documentation that's also looked at would include information that attests to the experience of the applicant, which could consist of resumes that would detail the applicant's background and experience, associations, professional associations such as memberships and trade associations that might also attest to the individual's expertise or knowledge of a given discipline. Equipment that may be used in the operation of the business could also be helpful. And leases, particularly with respect to place of operation, would also be needed. Contract information can also be used to also assist in the determination or assessment of experience of an applicant, such that if an individual has performed on a contract for services and the scope of services, let's say, have been defined in a contract, that could also be provided to assist in determining whether or not an individual has the expertise in the area. So basically what we're looking at in a case like this is businesses are certified not just by determination of race or gender, they're also certified in a particular area of expertise, and they should demonstrate knowledge in that particular area of expertise. Other documentation that you'll also find on our website would be we call attachment 1, the individual statement of ownership, where the owner is actually providing information again about himself and the business itself, which can also include, for example, information about their role in the business, what their investment in the business might consist of, and any other relationships with other businesses as well. Attachment 4, the affidavit of social disadvantage, is not a standard or a document, but it is used in certain cases where an individual who may not necessarily be considered a minority pursuant to the regulations still may feel that they have been subject to discrimination or bias that would also impact upon their ability to be able to operate and operate a business without assistance. This affidavit basically would be used to detail their experiences. Attachment 5 is a form, IRS form 4506T. It normally is used as a request for transcript of tax return. We normally ask that all applicants provide a copy of this form. It is used when there may be need to verify information that might appear on a tax return itself. So it's a document that helps us, again, to verify the accuracy of information that's been provided, or will help you as a professional if necessary to do that. Again, once a firm is certified under this process, at some point in time, it's normally done annually. That business will be subject to that file will be subject to a full review of the certification. And that's, again, to just assess the accuracy of the initial recommendation that's been made by the professional. In the event that we find that there have been gross errors or information that might lend us to think that the person is no longer eligible for certification, that company can be subject to being decertified. There are penalties that can be assessed to the professional in the event that information has not been properly compiled and put together. So again, I refer the professional to consult the regulations, to become acquainted with them as a guideline to determine basically the requirements for eligibility and the like. There are a series of resulting penalties to the professional, technical errors that weren't intentional, that may not affect the certification of the outcome, can result in the following instances. Let's say upon the first occurrence, just being a notice to the professional that the information was incorrect and to perhaps do a better job in moving forward. If there's a second strike, additional training might be required, and the third strike might result in the professional losing eligibility. Errors that didn't affect the certification outcome could very well be perhaps the receipt of information that had not been completed by the applicant, such that an example of that could be a blank, unsigned tax return that was submitted by the applicant. The documentation that we look for, we ask for information such as tax returns. We ask the information be signed by the applicant as a way of verifying that this information that's being presented is correct, as opposed to being a draft. And in some cases, we have had instances where applicants for certification have given us, let's say, or had their accountants provide us with unsigned copies of the return of the tax return, and we would find out later that that was the draft copy, was not the final copy. So we do ask that the professionals verify the information that's being provided to them. Errors like that may not affect the certification outcome would be considered a technical error that wasn't intentional. If the error was intentional in such a way where it was submitted knowing that the information was not correct, and it's determined that it was that way, will lose eligibility to participate in the program, and the firm would also be subject to decertification. There's a group of errors that's called substantive errors, errors that again, that did affect the certification outcome. Going back to the tax return example, for example, there is a size standard that we look at in most cases for business size. For our program, in this particular instance, that size standard is quite high. But let's just say that we got information that was provided. It was a draft form. It wasn't the final form. And in looking at the final form, we find out that the business size standard was exceeded by, let's say it was exceeded by whatever threshold or number we have now. That did affect the certification outcome, but we recognize it was perhaps intentional because it wasn't the final document. Information like that may require a more formal process involving the professional, whereby they will enter into a compliance integrity agreement with the city to more or less, again, emphasize the need for making sure that the information that's being reviewed is complete and accurate. In the event that another strike occurs under this process, the professional will be barred from participating in the program, and of course, the firm could be subject to be decertified. Again, if the errors are intentional, the professional will lose eligibility as well as the firm being decertified. Okay, so this is the part I really don't like to talk about, I guess, but in the event that we do have matters involving, let's say, intentional errors affect the certification outcome, we see this happening repeatedly. There's a pattern, for example, that's been established. The professional can be referred to our Inspector General's office for further investigation. The individual can be referred to the appropriate state licensing board for discipline, and or referred to our corporation counsel for prosecution under the city's false statement ordinance. This is an area that I presume that we won't ever see happen, but it can. Any questions going through the process, we encourage the professional as well as the applicant to contact our Department of Procurement Services certification unit. Our address, of course, is 121 North LaSalle, Suite 806. While we're for the most part teleworking or working remotely, we do check in from time to time on our line, so you can contact us at 312-744-4900, option 1. We encourage the professional to contact us if they have any questions regarding a question about the regulations, a question about information that they've received to determine whether or not they're processing it in a proper manner. For applicants, they can also contact us if they have any questions regarding certification. We do have a relationship with area assist, we call area assist agencies. These are normally chambers of commerce that can help the applicant in going through the certification process. For the professional, we encourage you to contact our office and we can work with you directly to make sure that you're proceeding in accordance with the regulations. These are pitfalls to avoid in submitting the information to the city. I normally don't see this with professional the declaration applications, but from time to time, I have had some occasions where, and looking at the application, it was incomplete. The site visits or recommendation reports did not provide sufficient information to help us to understand your thinking when you went to make the recommendation of certification. There have been instances where I've seen cases where the applicant was allowed to fill out the summary recommendation with the signature of the professional. Of course, that's taboo. That should never be done. But, again, these are pitfalls to avoid. The incorrect type of application that's submitted. And we have, again, several programs for certification. We have, for example, a federal. Sometimes people will confuse that application with the application for MBE certification. I encourage you to contact our office if you have any questions regarding the application process and the type of application that's been submitted. Failure to timely respond to requests for information. This is normally a process that we're involved in with respect to the review of the applicant's information. So you may find this something that you may encounter as well, whereby you're reviewing information that an applicant has given you. You may have a question with regard to that information that's been presented to you. You go back to the applicant and they fail to respond in a timely fashion. In our office, we normally ask for, when we send information, requests for information out, we normally require that the applicant respond to us within 15 to 30 days upon their request. Failure to fully respond to that request can result in the application being closed. There is an application fee for certification. This application fee is normally remitted after we receive the completed application from the applicant, along with the attestation from the professional. So what would happen is once you submit the application electronically, we will review it to make sure all of the essential documents are there. We'll receive it and we will invoice the applicant for the application fee, which is, again, $250 in most cases. In the event that that payment has not been received, perhaps after a period of 30 to 60 days, again, we will close the application. I know we've covered a lot in a short period of time. If you have any questions, I can try to entertain them now. I'll also leave you with my email address. You can feel free to always send me an email, and I'll respond within, let's say, within the day or so. My email address is my name. That's Cordell, Cordell .McGarry, McGary @cityofchicago.org. That's Cordell.McGarry @cityofchicago.org. Jackie, I'll turn it over to you.
I am searching for questions. They don't have any written. If you'd like to ask the question, I'll be more than glad to unmic you so that you can ask Cordell that question, whatever question you may have for him. All I need you to do is go to the Q&A session and say that you have a question. And then we will definitely unmic your mic so that you can ask your question.
Okay.
If there are, I'm gonna give you a few minutes. If you think of a question that you might have or want to type it out, feel free to do it in the Q&A. And while we're waiting, I want to say thank you so much to Cordell for imparting that great information regarding Professional Declaration of Eligibility. And let me thank our participants for attending today. Because we know that you are giving up some of your time to get this information. And so we want to make sure the information is something that you can use. Cordell, there is one question. It says, how long does it take to get back after applying for certification?
So the average processing time, and I have to stress this is the average processing time, begins after the payment of the application fee and receipt. It's assigned to an offer, and we try to review and complete the review. In this particular case, within, again, it's hard to say, we try to do it within a 30-day period to kind of give you a window. It could be shorter, it shouldn't be longer than that. And the reason why is because the professional has done the review and analysis that we would normally do in the review. So based on applications submitted under this process, I'm reviewing the work of the certification officer, the professional. So at that point, I'm just looking at the summary, making sure the summary, kind of ties into information provided by the business to determine whether or not the assessment has been done in accordance with the regulations. And under that scenario, it shouldn't take roughly 30 days to complete. But again, that begins after that applicant has made the payment. So, and let me also take a moment to just declaration of eligibility is a process that helps us to expedite applications that have been submitted for certification as a minority or woman-owned business. The normal processing time could average anywhere from 90 to 120 days. It's our hope that with your help as a professional and your knowledge of the regulations, that you've done a lot of the analysis and work that we normally would do, that we're doing on a much larger scale involving a lot of files, to help us to reach a decision, to agree with your decision, hopefully in every case, within a short period of time. So that's what we're looking at. And hopefully, again, we can establish that. On average, I would say, 30 days would be probably the long end. It's only a few applications I've seen take that long.
All right. There's also a question that I will answer. It says, is it possible to receive a copy of the PowerPoint? Rodney's going to send you through the chat the link for the PowerPoints. They're all online at our website, www.cityofchicago.gov/DPS. Chicago DPS, I think it is, or DPS. So he will be sending out that to you shortly, to everybody on this question and answer piece here. The next question for you, Cordell, is how can we make payment?
So once the application has been received, let's say during our intake process, you will receive an invoice. It'll be sent to the It'll be sent to the applicant through the same portal that was used to apply for certification. The invoice would provide information as to how the payment can be made. We do take electronic payments, but it'll also basically describe how that's to be done. You can also make payment at a number of different areas, satellite offices at the, on behalf of the city as well, at City Hall itself.
And the next question is basically, is there a template for a site visit summary covering all the information that the people that do the site visits would like to see?
Yes, there is. As a matter of fact, that information is available online during the application process. So once you go online and process of submitting the application, there is a series of documents that would include the form, the template for as well as the site visit and the attestation form, which needs to be completed by the professional.
The next question is: does the applicant have to have a CPA or an attorney in place in order to submit an application for certification? And
Okay.
you can answer that.
Okay, so anyone can apply for certification. You don't need an attorney, you don't need a CPA to apply for certification under any of our certification programs. The Professional Declaration of Eligibility is a process that allows the applicant to independent accountant or an independent CPA to review their application for eligibility. It is not required that you do so. It's an option for the applicant if they so choose to engage the services of a professional in making that determination of eligibility, subject to concurrence by the city. Um, so under the standard process, the applicant would apply for certification directly to the city. They would provide the information, eligibility. That applicant could seek the help of someone to prepare the application, for example, and submit it. But that individual or that prepared the application on their behalf could not make the recommendation of eligibility. And that's key here. The Professional Declaration of Eligibility refers to the role of the professional accountant or CPA in basically saying that independently, I reviewed this client's information and I believe them to be eligible for certification, as opposed to I've assisted my client in a city for certification.
And I think that's all of the questions. If no one else has a question, I'll give you just a few minutes to type it in if I have in some manner skipped over a question, but I think we covered everything that was put in the Q&A piece. Again, thank you so much, Cordell, for this great information.
No
Again,
problem.
on the
No
screen, you
problem.
see Cordell's email address.
Yes.
Yes. You see his email address in case you have further correspondence that you would like him to answer a brief question or two. We want to thank you for coming to today's presentation. We have 4 out of 5 people. That's great. Those odds are great for today. And we want you to stay safe, stay well, wear your mask, wash your hands, social distance, and hopefully, in sometime soon, we will see you again at City Hall, live and in person, at one of our workshops there. But in the meantime, feel free to go online and or sign up for the DPS alerts so that you can find out what presentations we will have or what workshops we will have going forward virtually that you can participate in. Thank you so much for attending. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Take care and be safe.